I am Ramey Starnes. I chair the LSU Board of Supervisors, and I hereby call this duly noticed meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. Ms. Griffith, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Starnes?
Here.
Ms. Jones? Here. Mr. Damp? Ms. Aguilera?
Here.
Mr. Armenter?
Here.
Ms. Aronson? Mr. Blossman? Mr. Brown?
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Mallett? Mr. Morris?
Here.
Mr. Morrow?
Here.
Mr. Temple?
Present.
Ms. Werner?
Here.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Woods?
Right behind that.
Mr. Zuschlag?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, there are 10 members here.
Say again?
There are 10 members. There's a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Griffith. Today we have Abigail Huddleston Williams delivering the Pledge of Allegiance and Carolyn Hassler offering the invocation. Would you please stand?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we'd like to pause and give thanks. Thank you for every seat that has been filled here today. For each mind and heart that fills the presence of this room, we thank you. Only you know what we are setting out to accomplish today. We have an idea, a vision, hints, and daily instructions. We have talents, abilities, and time to work. However, only you can see in perfect detail the end of every beginning, every project, every season, and every life. Nothing is ever in vain, for even mistakes and missteps are used for good. We thank you and we give you praise. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Ms.
Chair,
Huddleston Williams?
may I tell you the body a little bit about the students?
Yes, I would like to hear from the students.
Okay. If I may, come on back. Let me just say very quickly that Abigail was the first student you met. She's a senior at LSU, majoring in criminal justice. She's been heavily involved on campus. Currently, she's the reigning Miss LSUS, as you can see, SGA Senator, a founder of the new Criminal Justice Club, member of the National Society of Leadership Success, and a student worker on campus. She hopes to attend the Paul M. Hebert Law Center. The second person who will come up here is Carolyn Hassler. Carolyn is from Chandler, Arizona. She came to LSUS in 2017 to help the university restart the women's soccer program. Since then, she's helped lead the women's team to 2 conference championships and a national tournament appearance, as well as receiving many athletic accolades and holding many school records. Carolyn has been an honor student throughout her time at LSUS. She's received 2 bachelor degrees, one in management administration, another in marketing. She's currently completing her MBA degree at LSUS.
Hi, my name is Abigail Huddleston Williams, and as mentioned, I'm a senior majoring in criminal justice. I would like to say that I'm heavily involved on campus, as mentioned. So just a little background about me and my time at LSUS. So I'm Miss LSUS 2021. I'm a part of the Student Government Association, as I have drafted up a bill and it was proposed and led through. It was for concerning our pandemic time about sanitary on school campus. And then I am the student representative of the newly found Criminal Justice Club, a student worker at our INAR call center. It's a nonprofit organization. I'm a member of the National Society of Leadership and Success. I was a previous member of the Nonprofit Administration Student Organization, known as NASO, and a previous member of the Student Activities Board. I've been spotlighted as a campus leader, and I've appeared on the homecoming court for the past 2 years. And lastly, I've appeared on many platforms involving our campus, such as being interviewed for my first time voting in a presidential election as a student, and a podcast with our counseling services. To say that LSUS holds a special place in my heart is an understatement. LSUS has been a wonderful experience, and I've accomplished so much in just the 4 years I've attended here. I will be graduating this May. I am confident enough to say that I am prepared to go out and conquer my future goals because of LSUS. I hope to attend LSU Baton Rouge after graduation. My career goal is to become a prosecuting attorney for criminal law. I then hope one day that I have the opportunity to become a district attorney. My passion has always been to help others for what is right. I believe that fighting for the right side of justice will accomplish just that. I believe that everyone should have a voice, and with me becoming an attorney, I can help them do just that. I hope to be the voice for those that cannot. I hope that change is something not within far reach after accomplishing my educational goals while beginning my career goals. LSUS has taught me that if we speak up, we can change, that change can and will happen. This school has taught me to reach for the stars and go after what we confidently want. LSUS has helped me find my voice, and now I hope to do that just for others. One of the major turning points for me while attending LSUS was being crowned as Miss LSUS. Once being crowned, I was able to be heard more as I was viewed as a role model to others. With the crown came a lot more responsibility. However, it also gave me the voice that I needed to show others that nothing is impossible if you work hard for what you believe in. LSUS is the place that shows you it is okay to be who you are and that together nothing is impossible. One of my favorite quotes that was passed down on to me by my mother, who was also a student here and was the president of the NASO organization, is by Helen Keller. Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. I believe in that quote strongly and believe that this is what LSUS strives for, to help others when they need it. I'm proud to say that I'm a student at LSUS and that I'm grateful for all the opportunities I've gotten to experience because of LSUS. Without them, I would have not found me. And remember, go Pilots!
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Hasler?
Hello, everyone, and thank you to Chancellor Clark and the administration for asking me to speak for you all today. I'm going to preface this with an apology, as I often think in chaos, and therefore this might seem a little out of order, so please bear with me. As Chancellor Clark said, I'm Carolyn Hassler. I'm an Arizona native and one of 4 children, with 2 exceptionally athletically talented brothers and a smart and driven older sister. I enjoy many leisurely activities such as reading, occasionally binging Netflix, and any form of creative endeavor such as photography, design, and media. I'm an animal lover at heart and will hopefully one day have a home and land big enough for me and all of my pets. I've been blessed with family who has always pushed me to do my best and to never give up in the face of adversity, and that is how I ended up here in Shreveport. As Chancellor Clark also stated, I have been with the university's women's soccer team for 5 years. A lot longer than I expected to be here, but it was a blessing in disguise. I was originally not going to attend a university, but rather join the military. But I chose to take a year here at LSUS and see where it would go. After my freshman year, I was hooked and chose to stay to play the sport that I love. With how the last few years have been going, and the challenges of COVID, I never expected to be here for this coming school year. However, I'm glad I was granted the extra year to play and the extra year to grow. This allowed me to broaden my horizons and become involved with the athletic department in further capacities and take on other endeavors. Some of the fondest memories that have come from these endeavors are competing in the Miss LSUS pageant, representing athletics on the homecoming court, attending the BCM for free food and a quick Bible lesson, and even attending the fall festivals or trunk or treats. My extra time here has allowed me to work and experience so many things with some amazing people and build some new friendships. Tanner Kraft and the athletic department have been amazing in teaching me many new and important skills such as broadcasting, social media development, and the ins and outs of athletics. Tanner has offered me so many opportunities to improve such skills as public speaking and teamwork. I'll forever be grateful for the opportunities such as being able to PA at baseball games, including being able to speak over the University of Southwest's baseball team after the tragedy involving their golf team. This will forever be a special moment for me because as an athlete, I've traveled those highways in the same kind of vans that have been in those same kinds of vans and have experienced issues such as vans dying on us, pieces breaking off from windows and hitting the top of the roof, and even having to attempt to fix them with a former coach. I was honored to offer a moment of silence for those lost because I've been the athlete in those vans who has been asleep and woken up by a sudden jolt or a loud thud. This is just one of the memorable opportunities I was presented with, and I'm proud to share. Without LSUS and the amazing moments I've spent here as a student, as an athlete, and as a worker, I would not be who I am, and therefore I would not be where I am. So to the administration, my coaches, and all the staff who have made my time at LSUS something I will forever remember, I will forever be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chancellor Clark, for having us here, for hosting us as we meet. It's an honor for us to be here in Shreveport, be here at LSUS. Earlier today, we visited our Health Science Center, and I want to thank Dr. Lewis for hosting us there. We had a wonderful visit. We had an opportunity to see the new Health Science Center building that's going up. It's a $74 million project, largely out of capital outlay, so I want to thank Governor Edwards and the legislature for appropriating that money. It's also partly funded by the LSU-Ochsner partnership, as well as Ochsner has also donated, I believe it's $5 million. So I want to thank all of those entities and the leadership at LSU Health Science Center in Shreveport for bringing that together. It's going to be a fantastic facility for scholars and healers to collaborate, and I'm excited about the progress there. So thank you, Dr. Lewis. We have special guests here. Of course, everybody here is special guests, but I'd like to recognize members of our legislature. I see Jack McFarland, who represents Wynn Parish, I believe Jackson and Benville too, but I've seen earlier Thomas Presley is here. There he is behind the podium. I saw Sam Jenkins walk into the room, and so thank you, gentlemen, for being here. And I see Wilbert Pryor, who is a member of the Board of Regents, so I thank you for being here. I said him first.
I didn't hear it, sorry.
But thank y'all for being here very much. We have no one registered for public comment, but before I call the committees to order, I would like to take a moment to address the National Cancer Institute designation that we are seeking. The highest priority of my tenure as chair and as a supervisor has been to promote and protect LSU. I wear this pin today, which is an outline of the state of Louisiana with LSU inside of it, to remind us all that LSU and Louisiana are one and the same and share the same fate. LSU is involved in and concerned with each of the 64 parishes in Louisiana. Sharing the same fate means we each have a vested interest in each other's health and well-being. For Louisiana to be as healthy and as prosperous as it can be, LSU needs to achieve the much coveted research designation from the National Cancer Institute. As the sole land-grant university in Louisiana, we are the only entity in a position to achieve NCI designation. An NCI designation opens the floodgates for federal dollars to pour into our state. In 2003, an economic impact study published about the economic impact of an NCI designation in Louisiana, the authors claim that for every dollar invested in cancer research, the return is $8.50. But more than dollars and cents, an additional 6,500 lives would be saved over a decade. Patients in cancer care in the United States amount to about $21 billion, plus another $16 billion in out-of-pocket expenses. But in Louisiana, we shoulder a disproportionate share of the burden. High incidence of cancer and large incidence of poverty mean that we have worse outcomes than we should have. Last fall, President Tate and I led a contingent to the University of Kentucky and saw firsthand the transformational effect an NCI designation can have on a university, a community, a state. The federal government's investment there led to millions upon millions of dollars in other research and clinical revenues used to improve patient outcomes. Now, NCI designation is not new. Nobody here came up with the idea for it or how to achieve it. In Louisiana, we've been wanting to get it for about 30 years. But politics, lack of direction, lack of will to do the things that need to be done have all contributed to the lack of success. In fact, our legislature passed a law in 2002, Louisiana Revised Statute 17:1921, codifying and creating a consortium strategy for the purpose of achieving NCI designation. This statutory consortium, that is the law of Louisiana, leaves the Health Science Center in Shreveport and LSUS out entirely. In fact, no entity in North Louisiana is a part of this statutory consortium. In 2017, the Louisiana Legislative Auditor released findings regarding the statutory consortium. Over that 15-year period, Louisiana spent $144.2 million from state tobacco tax proceeds for cancer research and $92.4 million from capital outlay to build and equip facilities. While gains were made in research, the audit found that the administrative structure, that is the consortium strategy, needed to be changed in order to achieve NCI designation. This finding lines up completely with our lived experience and information we've learned over the past several years. So the consortium strategy doesn't work. So what is the right strategy, the winning strategy? The only answer is a single entity strategy. LSU Health New Orleans has a cancer research portfolio 5 times the size of anyone else in Louisiana, and we have designated them the single entity applicant. But the NCI success will be shared among every citizen and every community in Louisiana. The success comes in 2 phases. The first, the initial applicant wins and then immediately starts the application for a comprehensive cancer center, which include multiple partners. LSU Health Shreveport will be a leader in the drive for comprehensive cancer status. Once we achieve comprehensive status, our clinical partners can spread the success across the state. Again, every region, every parish. Shreveport, Caddo Parish, all of North Louisiana are all strongly positioned for prosperity when we achieve NCI designation. Here, there are 2 LSU campuses, including a medical school. These are natural and ready-made ports to receive an influx of large amounts of federal monies. As we learn from our travels, such a huge federal investment has tremendous positive impact on private industry, economic development for an entire region and an entire state. What Louisiana has tried thus far this century has not worked. The old consortium strategy codified in the law did not include Shreveport or any entity in North Louisiana. And I want to thank President Tate for what I believe will be a winning strategy to achieve NCI designation that, unlike previous efforts, includes Shreveport and North Louisiana as important and necessary partners. LSU is committed to winning. LSU is committed to achieving the long-sought NCI designation. LSU is committed to doing these things in full partnership and full participation with our 2 schools in Shreveport and all of the people here. We will win, and we will win together. And all of Louisiana will be healthier and more prosperous as a result. Ms. Werner, would you please, without objection, I would like to recess the board meeting and ask Ms. Werner to convene the Research and Ag Extension Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Clark, would you like to make the introductions for our presentation today? Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Griffith, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Werner,
Here.
Ms. Aronson, Ms. Aguilera,
Here.
Mr. Brown,
Here.
Mr. Morris,
Here.
Ms. Jones. Here. Mr. Temple.
Here.
Madam Chair, there's a quorum.
Thank you. Chancellor Clark.
Thank you. Thank you for the privilege to be able to speak with you. LSU Shreveport has been very fortunate over the last 5 or 6 years with what we have generated for revenue with online educational programs. And we chose to reinvest the dollars into the university. Many years went by without this university being able to do just that. And so refurbishing classrooms, changing things, we wanted to do more than that. We wanted to have signature pieces that would help us lead and serve this region. And we looked around, we saw other universities, including Louisiana Tech, and we said, we don't need to replicate Louisiana Tech. They're great, they do great things. Others do the same. We need to identify where the white space is and then look to see how that could be aligned with what's happening here with the needs primarily of Northwest Louisiana, but looking throughout the whole state. And we have done things that include our Human Performance Lab that someday we'd like to have you see in the back. It's unique, fully unique. Our Cyber Collaboratory, where we have a hologram table where there's only 3 in the country right now. You'll see it at lunch. But it also is an area in place that we've been able to work to talk about how we link to cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is very important to us up here in the north part of the state. And with what goes across the cyber corridor that goes across over to Monroe and comes down towards Natchitoches, including Northwestern State University. This is very important. And again, we've looked for ways in which we can work in collaboration. And I'm pleased to say up here that we do. One of the companies, Dynamics IT, is a classic example of collaboration, led by Les Geis of Louisiana Tech in how we work together. Judy Lessiter is our Vice Chancellor for Strategic Initiatives. That was a position that we created on this campus several years ago. It was pretty unique at that point. It was created because we need to be looking forward. We need to be looking where those opportunities are. We need to look for collaboration. It has helped us to link to K-12 education like we never have before. It's helped us look other ways beyond that, including working with LSU Health Shreveport, especially with Allied Health. And so there's a lot of things that have been very successful. One area of focus that we've had, again, is coming back to what, with our name, Cyber Collaboratory, what can we do? Julie Lessiter is going to come forward and she's going to present to you a PowerPoint presentation to give you a little bit of a summary, but hopefully a taste of what it is. And at noon, when you have lunch in the Cyber Collaboratory, she'll be there as you come in for lunch, along with several others, and hopefully can answer some questions there as well that you may have. If you allow me, I'd like to ask Vice Chancellor Julie Lessiter to come here. Dr. Lessiter, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Clark, and thank you to the board as well for giving me this opportunity today to come and give you the highlights about what we've been doing in cyber here at LSU Shreveport. So when we talk about cyber at LSUS, we don't just talk about cybersecurity. We have a holistic view of what cyber is, and that includes artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, blockchain, IoT, metaverse, all of the things that you hear about in the entire scope of what it is to be cyber. So with that in mind, a few years ago, Chancellor Clark received some seed money from AEP SWEPCO, and he challenged me to build out a space where our students could have access to do hands-on learning with cyber and other new and developing technologies. So as you can see from the before picture, this was our very underutilized 10,000 square foot bookstore. And we turned that into our amazing cyber collaboratory where, as Chancellor Clark said, you guys are going to be eating lunch today. So the after picture is actually just one of our classroom spaces over there. That's our immersive learning space and our esports lounge. So we've got some really neat things to show you over there. I think you're going to have fun looking at all of the technology that we have. So the Cyber Collaboratory actually has a 3-pronged mission. Our first mission is K-12. We have to build the pipeline And then we also have to train the trainers or train the teachers here in Caddo and Bossier. The second part is for our LSU students to be able to have that hands-on learning experience, whether it's with their faculty in class projects or on research projects. And then the third prong is for industry, who can come in and utilize our technology and our equipment with the caveat that they have to be able to incorporate our students into their projects so that they get that learn fast, fail fast, safe environment where they're actually really working on real-world problems. So here's some pictures of our K-12 programming, and this, again, it's really important. So we have a STEM continuum in the summer through our summer camps, and I actually have some of our industry partners underwrite the cost of these camps so that I can get Title I kids here in Caddo and Bossier into these camps for free to utilize technology that they would never experience or never have had the chance to experience in their lives. So you'll see some pictures here. They're working on Raspberry Pis, robotics, those are laser cutters. We also do Cyber Saturdays, we have Cyber Lit camps, we have homeschool programming, and we also have esports tournaments, because if any of you have kids, you know they're always playing on their computers and on, in their games, so we have to meet the students where they are, and this is where that generation is. So these are all kinds of fun things we do for the K-12, building the pipeline. I've put these courses up here just to emphasize that when we talk about cyber and cybersecurity, it's not just computer science. So cyber is essentially the assessment and risk, evaluation of risk in your organization. So you have to understand, first of all, the why. So we have some criminal justice courses there. We're also working on building out some cyber psychology courses as well. And then the how, which is the computer science. And then also the additional business classes, whether it's management, information, decision sciences, that are also incorporated into financial risk as well for a business and an organization. Here are our top industry partners. GDIT, we are building a pipeline for them for cybersecurity specialists. We had a great conversation with them yesterday about technical writers, our English majors. For Ingalls, that's a cybersecurity company. They are working on visualization of cyber to try to lower the barriers of entry to those working in cyber so that it's not just those in computer science. For Unity, that's an AR/VR platform, and we span up a AR/VR academy that was underwritten by the other company, 3D Media, and just this week, we've had 12 of our students earn industry certifications in Unity, and I've had 3 companies reach out to me to see when they're graduating because they'd like to hire them. Lumens and Strikeworks and Barksdale Air Force Base, we actually do a lot of design sprints and more additive manufacturing with them, prototyping. We've been teaching them how to design elements and how to prototype and 3D print those. And then with the city, we've been doing a lot of AI and IoT projects as public-private partnerships. And here's an example of the project with the city. This was this involved garbage trucks, Raspberry Pis, and video cameras. And so, I know that sounds like an odd combination, but our garbage trucks around the city, we attached a camera with a Raspberry Pi, and as they were on their routes picking up trash, they're looking for those big tires that are in people's yards so that they could then go and know where to go and pick those up. It all goes back to the command center. So this was a really neat and fun project that our students got to work on. In addition to our academic programming, we also have our workforce development and Upskill U, where we're doing lots of IT programming so that anyone already in the industry or outside of the industry looking to get into that can earn industry-based certifications, so your Sec Plus, your A++, Cloud, Ruby, all of those sorts of things as well. And then future growth. From an enrollment perspective, over the last 5 years, we've had a 41% increase in our computer science majors, which again is, I think, from building that pipeline and more of our students in this area understanding what cyber is and what it means. We added that cybersecurity concentration in 2018, so I think that's been very helpful in driving that enrollment. In the last couple of years, we've increased our scholarship packages for our computer science students We've still got a long way to go to help get those students educated and in school and throughout the pipeline. And then for future target, we've tied all of this together with the LED grant that we received for $1.2 million, which essentially was to infuse digital dexterity into all of our academic programs. So whether you're an English major or a computer science major, whatever the major, you have the skill set upon graduation to be able to go out into this digital economy and know exactly the skills that you need to be successful in your career. And so we've taken a marketing campaign to do careers and map out the pathway to degree programs. So looking for a big impact on that. I have given you a really high-level overview of what we've been doing. I'm happy to answer any more questions at lunch, and thank you guys for your time, unless anyone has a question now.
Any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Well, I particularly want to say that, that this is all fantastic, and Regent Pryor, you know, we were talking about all the great things in Shreveport at the recent Board of Regents meeting, and this is just fantastic because the emphasis in the state, of course, is credentialing, certificates, degrees, so that we are creating the workforce that we need, not just in Louisiana, but across the country, that we can educate Louisiana citizens to fill these hundreds of thousands of cyber jobs as we're working across the state to do. So this is just phenomenal. But I particularly want to say how inspiring it is to see the camps and the scholarships for these children who don't have this access in their homes or in their probably elementary schools, and that LSU Shreveport is making that opportunity available to open the world up to them so that they see what they can attain once they graduate high school and the career path that they can choose. That's just very inspiring that we are reaching back and bringing those young people along in the earliest ages. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a big passion of ours here in Shreveport, so thank you.
It's critically important. Thank you. Is there any other business for the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Thank you, Mr. Armentor. No objection, the committee's adjourned. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Warren. Mr. Morris, can you please convene the Health Committee?
Yes. Ms. Griffin, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Morris,
Here.
Mr. Armentor,
Here.
Mr. Brown,
Here.
Mr. Damp, Ms. Jones. Here. Mr. Williams, Mr. Woods.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, there's a quorum.
Thank you. We have a presentation today by Chancellor Nelson and Chancellor Lewis, so I'm going to turn it over to them for their presentation.
Well, good morning, Chairman Sarnes, board members, President Tate. I also thank Chancellor Clark for holding this meeting. I've never been to this campus before. It's truly quite a beautiful campus. I was very much inspired. Unfortunately, I did get lost because the directions said to park in numbered lots, and unfortunately the lots aren't numbered, so I actually took quite a large tour of the campus. It is truly quite beautiful. So in the true spirit of collaboration, we're going to do this as a two-part presentation. I'm going to do the first part, and then my counterpart, Dr. Lewis, will do the next. So first of all, what is NCI designation, and why is it important to LSU and to Louisiana? So this gets started from the National Cancer Centers program, which was founded almost 40 years ago in 1971. And the main purpose of doing this was to create research centers. So sometimes this gets confusing. This NCI designation grant is a research grant. And the idea is that if you're doing state-of-the-art research, that you're also at that facility, and the associated facilities will be doing state-of-the-art patient care as well. This designation is given, again, primarily for research. And in order to qualify for even applying, you have to have a certain level of funding from the NCI in order just to apply. And again, in terms of when you apply, it's a 5-year grant, and then it's renewable every 5 years as well. And sometimes people get confused about the size of the grant. The money really isn't all that large. It's about $1.5 to maybe $2 million a year for 5 years, $10 million. And that's a sizable amount of money, but within the LSU system, we have many grants that exceed that amount. So the main benefit of this is that it spurs research, brings in other research dollars, as Chairman Starnes was pointing out, and then you're associated with hospitals that provide state-of-the-art care, and it's through that care that they generate revenue, which now feeds the research enterprise. So it's like a circle that feeds each other. Now again, as Chairman Starnes pointed out, Louisiana ranks at the bottom in terms of health rankings. Usually it's 49 or 50. We're very thankful for Mississippi helping us out every once in a while. And when you look at cancer deaths, we're usually 4 or 5. And it affects both whites and blacks. So if you look at survival for both blacks and whites in the state of Louisiana, it's lower than the other states of the United States. And actually it's the lowest for black women. And part of the reason has to do with health disparities. And as we all know, again, as Chairman Suarez pointed out, we have lots of disparities here in terms of poverty, access to care, and other social determinants of health. The other point to bring out is that a large number of patients leave Louisiana to go to other places for their care. So if you look at Louisiana, where are the next 2 closest NCI-designated cancer centers? It's UAB and it's MD Anderson. And a couple of years ago, we looked at the total number of patients that actually went to those places for care, and it was 6,000. I dare say it's probably even more today. Now, when you look in terms of where these cancer centers are, there's 71 right now in the United States of America, and you can see in terms of Louisiana, it's Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas, that Delta regions, where there's no NCI cancer center, designated cancer center. And I can tell you that both Arkansas and Mississippi are working very hard to get NCI designation. And obviously, it's very important for us to make sure that we're going to stay in this race. We have to get this going. If you look in terms of other more recent designated cancer centers, again, as the chair pointed out, we look at Oklahoma, the investment made in that was over $400 million to get this designation. In Kentucky, it was over $200 million. And the University of Kansas was actually over now $300 million. They actually just went for comprehensive cancer status, which they achieved, and that approached almost a $700 million investment. And when you look in terms of the sources, where does all this money come from? It's the state, it's the federal, and it's philanthropy. It's all together if you're going to make this work. But now just look at the yield in terms of what this investment brought to Kansas. And again, Chairman Starnes pointed this out. 350 cancer researchers, 150 oncologists, 25,000 individuals enrolled in clinical trials. And the impact to the economy was over $500 million in terms of research funding, 2.5 in terms of the economy, and over almost 4,000 jobs. The other point I just want to bring out is that people sometimes get confused, again, that this, where the center is, that's where the activity is. The NCI expects this center to be effective and have influence over the state that it's in. And so it's critical that we work with all the different partners in terms of bringing this to reality. And that means both in terms of the legislature and other parties. They want to see that the state supports this effort. That's critical when they come for their site visit. And lastly, again, as Chairman Starnes pointed out, well, you might say, well, it's a big investment. We all got to work together. Why don't we all work together and apply? Well, until several years ago, you could do that. That was called a consortium. But they said you can't do that anymore. This comes strictly from the guidelines from the NCI. And so for your first application, it has to be a single institution. Then, when you go for your renewal, you can bring a consortium. Now, the critical part of that is they're going to want to see when you go for that next renewal that you have been working together. What are you doing together? Are you doing research together? Are you writing papers together? Are you having symposiums together? They want evidence that you're working together. So those are some of the things that we're doing right now that I'm going to ask David Lewis to talk a little bit about.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. So it's incredibly important that we succeed in Shreveport so Dr. Nelson can get NCI designation. And the way this works is that as we get more and more grants that are collaborative in nature, they go on both of our portfolios. And so that way, whenever we come up for renewal, what basically happens is that it's just almost a rubber stamp, if you will. And it's not only important for us as NCI and NIH research, but it's also important from a clinical trials point of view going forward, that we're all collaborative. And so let me just tell you that this has been going on in Shreveport, between Shreveport and other members of the LSU family for a very, very, very long time. And I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time on this, but as you can see up there at the top, we currently have grants with Dr. Ochoa and Glenn Mills at our shop that is an NCI grant. We also have a smaller grant with several of our investigators, with Dr. Nelson's investigators. And then Terry Davis has one on health literacy with the Pennington Center. About a year ago now then, a little less than a year ago, we all got together and decided the thing to do was to go for a collaborative cancer research initiative. And I'm going to speak more about this, but the reason why this is important is us coming together, one LSU, if you will, and collaborating is critical, not only for the initial submission, but also 5 years later when we get to re-up and there's cancer centers around the state. So we have other grants that currently cross over our institution. We have an INCOR grant. We've had this joint funding since 2012, and some of those PIs from my shop are listed up there. We also are very blessed to have a number of COBRA grants, and our research team has worked diligently. We currently have 2, are in the process of applying for a 3rd, but Dr. Nelson's group has a viral oncology COBRA grant, which crosses over to us with investigators and money, and we have a viral immunology COBRA grant in Shreveport, which crosses over to him. So once again, it shows that we are collaborating, and this collaboration becomes very important, and is going to make his initial submission stronger, and more importantly, it's going to make the submission for re-up even just easy. So I mentioned the collaborative initiative. So we got together and talked about putting up some money, and actually President Tate stepped up and gave more money than any of the rest of us. And so currently this pilot cancer grants is what it's called. It has $2.5 million in it, and basically the way this works is 5 campuses across the system can apply for grants. What it requires is that there has to be an investigator at 2 separate sites. They come together, they apply for money, and this money is essentially seed dollars to get preliminary work done so they can apply for either an NIH grant or an NCI grant. And so that way we are even more collaborating. So this process has already started, and I believe the first grants will be given out this summer, is my understanding. So the other point I kind of want to make is, Feiswilder, we got a lot of cancer treatment centers down in the south down there. We got a couple, 3 here in Shreveport. Over in the Monroe area, as Randy Morris will tell you, there's no comprehensive treatment center. And we talked about health disparities a little bit earlier. There's no place in the state of Louisiana with more health disparities than that Delta country up in the northeast part of the state of Louisiana. And so there is a big initiative going on with the legislature, with Governor Edwards, also with the Ochsner LSU partnership to build a cancer center over in the Monroe area. I just can't stress to you how desperately this is needed. When you look at cancer rates in that area, they are incredibly high. More importantly, most of the people that are diagnosed over there actually are stage 3 and stage 4. Now, that's part of my responsibility, or my center's responsibility, and we take that very seriously. We send vans over there. Feiswilder Cancer Center has big motor homes that we send over there. We do colon screening, we do mammography, we do lung cancer screening, and we go out to these rural areas and provide that at no cost currently, but that's just a small part of what needs to be done over in that particular area. So ultimately, the citizens of Louisiana deserve to have an NCI cancer treatment center. I'll be very honest with you, most of us, if we got diagnosed with cancer, many of us would go out of state to get state-of-the-art care. Unfortunately, we have many people in this state that I care for every day that don't have that luxury. And for us not to have this is honestly and truthfully something that we have to, we just got to work together to get this. And I want to thank President Tate for his leadership on this, and thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation. Any comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the committee.
So moved.
Mr. Woods? Any? Second. No objection, we'll adjourn the committee.
Thank you, Supervisor Morris. And thank you, Doctors Nelson and Lewis. Really inspires me to see the two of you collaborating. I believe that this type of collaboration is what we're going to need to get to where we want to go. So thank you, the two of you, again, for your excellent presentation. Supervisor Armator, would you please convene the academic committee?
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to. Nicole, would you please call the roll of the academic committee?
Mr. Armitage?
Here.
Mr. Morrow?
Here.
Ms. Aguilera?
Here.
Mr. Damp? Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Woods?
Here.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Chairman, there's a quorum.
I will now call on interim Provost Matt Lee to take us through the items. I'd lost the Provost for a while, but then I realized he was hiding behind that video.
Yes, sir. I'm tucked in the corner over here. Good morning, Supervisors.
Number one to you, Matt.
Yes, sir. The first item on the agenda is a request to establish a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Media Studies from LSU Shreveport. The BFA in Media Studies will be an interdisciplinary degree that prepares students for employment throughout the entertainment and media industry. Shreveport has recent developments in the film and entertainment industry, such as a new post-production studio, and is the venue for the Louisiana Film Prize event that not only seeks professionals for employment, but also brings in substantial revenue to the northwest region of the state. The program will primarily serve transfer students from the Caddo Career and Tech Center and Bossier Parish Community College, along with freshmen interested in working for the industry, with projected enrollment of 20 in the first year, up to 60 students in year 5. Revenue from tuition will more than cover the expenses for this new program. Thank you for your consideration of this request.
Are there any questions? If not, is there a motion to accept the proposal as presented?
So moved.
By Mr. Woods and second by Mr. Morrow. Without objection, the motion is approved. Dr. Lee?
Yes, sir. The second item is a request to establish a Bachelor of Science in Nonprofit Administration, again from LSU Shreveport. The BS in Nonprofit Administration will prepare students for employment in all aspects of the nonprofit sector and will provide the knowledge necessary to sit for the Certified Nonprofit Professional Credential, the only nationally recognized credential in the discipline. LSU has met with several nonprofit organizations in the Shreveport-Bossier area. Just for context, there's about 2,000 of them, and received strong approval for this degree, as there is currently no similar undergraduate programming in the state, especially as this program specifically provides for training successful and innovative nonprofit management and leaders. Projected enrollment will also come from transfer pathways with Bossier Parish Community College and Southern University in Shreveport, Bossier City, and regularly admitted students who want a work-ready degree program that responds to industry needs. Projected enrollment in year 1 is 25 students, growing to 40 in year 5, and is projected at all costs will be more than covered by revenue. Thank you for your consideration of this second request.
Board members, any questions? If none, is there a motion to recommend the proposal as presented?
So moved.
By Ms. Aguilera, seconded by Mr. Morrow. Without objection, the motion is approved. Dr. Lee.
Yes, sir. The third item is a request from LSU Shreveport to establish an undergraduate certificate in nonprofit administration. So this is essentially a carve-out from the degree program just approved and will be offered to attract working professionals who would like to advance their career in the nonprofit industry. Projected enrollment is currently 6 students in line, and is projected to increase to by about 15 students in year 5. So thank you for your consideration of this request.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve as presented?
Moved.
Mr. Morrow and seconded by Mr. Woods. Without objection, the motion is approved. Going now to number 4, Dr. Lee.
Yes, sir. Next, we have a request from the LSU Health Sciences Center in Shreveport for continued designation of the Center of Academic Excellence in Patient-Centered Rehabilitation, also known by the acronym PACER. The Board of Regents granted one-year conditional approval for PACER in April of 2021, and we are now requesting full approval for an additional 5 years. PACER provides and promotes advanced practice rehabilitation clinical services and blended learning experiences across 3 academic professional programs, 1 academic research program, 3 clinical service areas, and 3 post-professional physical therapy residency programs. Since its implementation a year ago, PACER has created a pipeline program for historically underrepresented students to provide experiential learning in the rehabilitative professions, has developed tuition waivers, has established collaborative research with faculty, and the implementation and has implemented interventions with for children with autism. PACER has secured funding from multiple sources at the federal, state, and local levels, totaling $1.8 million, with philanthropic support of $700,000. It also generates clinical revenue of approximately $1.5 million and contract revenue of over $200,000. Thank you for your consideration of this request.
Any board member questions? If not, is there a motion to accept the item as presented?
So moved.
By Ms. Aguilera, seconded by Mr. Morrow. Without objection, number 4 is also approved. Dr. Lee, let's go to number 5.
Yes, sir. Number 5 is a recommendation to approve conferral of degrees for calendar year 2022 commencement exercises. Every year, we put this recommendation forward to the board in preparation for the upcoming commencement activities throughout the state. This recommendation is for both online and on-campus programs, and I certainly hope there are no objections to approving the conferral of degrees.
That's an easy one. Any questions? Any motions to move that forward? By Mr. Woods, seconded by Mr. Morrow, and that motion carries and is approved. Dr. Lee, let's go to the next item, which I understand is the consent agenda.
Yes, sir. I will move to the consent agenda and summarize all topics, and at the end, I'll ask for approval. First, we have a request from LSU A&M to award a posthumous degree in the name of Mr. Robert Justin Fields. At the time of his untimely passing, Mr. Fields was a senior undergraduate student in mechanical engineering. He was in very good standing with a 3.66 grade point average. He was an active leader in the LSU Formula One mini Indy racing team since his sophomore year. He only had 15 hours left to graduate. The second item is a request for LSU to terminate a graduate certificate in teaching in the health professions because it is a low completer program. The third item is to terminate a graduate certificate in fisheries science and assessment because it is a low completer program. The fourth item is a request from LSU Health Science Center, New Orleans, to change the name of the Department of Rehabilitation and Counseling simply to the Department of Counseling. Then we have a request from LSU Shreveport to name the Dr. Lacey and E.D. Williams Boathouse. The new boathouse is to be built to support the LSU-S bass fishing team, of which Dr. Lacey and E.D. Williams are tremendous supporters. Just for context, LSU Shreveport has a nationally ranked bass fishing team, which I'm very excited about.
And you should be.
Oh, absolutely. And then I will add that there is also a request from LSU A&M to name Our Lady of the Lake Interdisciplinary Science Building. One of LSU's top capital projects is the construction of a new science building, interdisciplinary in nature and housing all of the College of Sciences programs. This building is necessary to close more than half of the college's current gap in educational and lab space needs. Our Lady of the Lake has committed $15 million towards the construction of the new building. The naming will honor this investment, but also represents the decades-long relationship Our Lady of the Lake has with LSU's College of Science. That constitutes the consent agenda, and I thank you for your consideration of these items.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Do I have a motion to adjourn the academic committee?
So moved.
By Mr. Woods and seconded by
Jones.
Ms. Jones. The committee is adjourned. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Armentor. Before we convene the next committee, I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege.
Chair,
What?
at the end of that committee
They didn't vote on the consent agenda? I didn't, they adjourned it though, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just reconvene and vote.
Vote on the consent agenda?
Reconvene the committee.
Yeah,
Well, the committee is hereby reconvened,
then call for a vote on the consent agenda.
and well, let's vote on the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 All those opposed? And the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Now adjourn the committee.
And now I'll need a motion to adjourn.
Second?
It's unanimous. And the academic committee is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Armentor. Like I said, I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege. I recognize our special guest, members of the legislature and member of the Board of Regents, but I did not see my friend, Representative Glover, but I understand that he's here, and I would like to recognize him. We had a public comment section, but I would like to extend a privilege to our legislators and our guests, the region, if they would like to address the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and President Tate, as well as board members. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Thomas Presley. I represent District 6, which is comprised of portions of Shreveport and Bossier City. And I appreciate y'all having this meeting in Shreveport. There's no doubt that higher education is vitally important to the future of Louisiana, and particularly Northwest Louisiana. Northwest Louisiana's medical school, as well as our four-year institution, LSUS, needs more public dollars as well as private investment. These challenges and the challenges of our community date back, and certainly higher education in our community, date back many years. In 1994, a study was commissioned by our by our Chamber of Commerce, which talked about the need for higher investment in higher education in our region. More opportunities for people to grow, more opportunities for our residents to get educated in fields that are important to our area. Again, in 2012, another study was completed. That's the Eva Klein study that I'm sure some of you know about. At that time, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee in the House, Jim Fannin, brought legislation to consider moving this campus to merge it with Louisiana Tech. That effort did not pass, as you are aware, but the study came out of that, and a commitment to LSU was memorialized by the legislature through a House resolution, through a Senate resolution, through a Senate concurrent resolution. Many of those promises have not been fulfilled to date. Again, the priorities for our region in healthcare and energy and cyber are vitally important to the future growth of our region, and it's important that we have educational opportunities and partnerships, both in the private and public sector, to allow those areas to flourish. Dr. Clark spoke earlier and talked about collaboration and collaborating with other institutions, which LSUS has done to the greatest of their ability, but we need more resources in order to do that. I was disappointed to see the marketing materials that have been put out by the LSU system about the Pentagon plan that's been advertised as an important aspect for Louisiana. And I agree, it's very important for Louisiana. But two of those pillars are biotechnology and cyber. Those two pillars are essential to the future of Shreveport, the future of Bossier, and the future of Northwest Louisiana, and all of North Louisiana in particular. I'll talk about cyber first. We are less than 5 miles away from a 4-star commanded Air Force base that has the Global Strike Command headquartered there. Global Strike Command, as you are all aware, it involves national defense, and cyber is an important part of that. Our local universities, our regional community colleges, our private sectors have all come together to work diligently together to make sure that the I-20 cyber corridor, as it's known nationally, is located here in North Louisiana. I believe, and I hope that the LSU system recognizes that this is a pillar for our community and something that we must ensure that we continue to invest right here at LSUS. The new program that you heard about earlier is a wonderful beginning, but we need more investment in that. And I'm here to partner with you in making sure that that's a possibility. On the biotechnology front, looking at the website that's laid out the vision, we don't even mention Shreveport. As you know, as the four of you that came to the tour today, this morning, saw firsthand, the Health Science Center is, in my opinion, the greatest asset, other than Barksdale. Those two together are the greatest assets of our community. And we must ensure that we are continuing to invest research dollars in that program. And while National Cancer Institute designation is vitally important to Louisiana, there's no argument for me on that. When you look at the history, when you look at National Institute of Health dollars that have been put out and been raised throughout Louisiana, the Health Science Center in New Orleans, Pennington and Baton Rouge, and even Xavier University in New Orleans now do more research, NIH research, which is the mecca of research, dollars, than Shreveport's Health Science Center. We've got to invest more. The new building certainly will help in that effort, and I applaud you and all partners, legislature, private sector, the LSU Health Foundation, for the efforts to make sure that that building became a reality. But we must do more. Shreveport-Bossier in North Louisiana has incredible potential. I left this community when I was a senior in high school after graduation and went off to college. Had a great experience in a neighboring state. I learned a lot about fundraising. I learned a lot about being in leadership in higher education. I was student body president at my university. And what I also learned is that you have to prioritize in order to do that fundraising. And the priority for me in this community, in my opinion, has to be building on the successes, focusing on our strengths, and allowing our area to flourish. This is not a new conversation. This is a conversation that's gone on for decades, certainly throughout my lifetime. LSUS, Northwest Louisiana, has oftentimes been forgotten about by the system. And I hope, and I pray, honestly, that you will help us in our region of the state reach our full potential. Let's build upon our strengths: healthcare, energy, cyber, and defense and logistics. Let's build a system that allows our community to flourish. Please help us be that partner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Presley. Mr. McFarland?
Thank you, Chairman Starnes, Board of Supervisors. Almost feel like I'm at a committee hearing meeting in Baton Rouge. Look, I appreciate you, first of all, coming to Shreveport and hosting your supervisors meeting here. Secondly, I make a concerted effort as a legislator to keep a distance. I've only attended probably 3 of these meetings, or felt it a need that I attend these meetings, because you are appointed and you have a responsibility, and I think each one of you do that to the best of your ability. Communication is the key to you being successful and me being successful in the legislature. And I think that, unfortunately, over the last few weeks, there's been an opportunity for that lack of communication to be highlighted between all of us. And it's created some emotions for some of us in the legislature. And it's a bit concerning when I hear people say, well, the North Louisiana delegation, if you would have put more in capital outlay for LSUS, then they might be in a different position, or they might be able to do this. So to give you an example, I went and looked at the request from facility planning that LSU the flagship Baton Rouge put in. I could only find one project with a specific project ID number. So how can I go to House Bill 2 and fight for LSUS for a specific item if it's not given a project ID number? Now, some of you may not, thank you. Some of you may not be aware of how that process works in Baton Rouge and in the legislature. That's how it works. So moving forward, I just think that we need to have an opportunity to communicate better with one another. Obviously, Dr. Tate, myself, Jason Drotty, they have made multiple attempts, and we've had multiple meetings, and I appreciate that. That's a concerted effort. That's the only way we can move forward is by communicating with each other. Now, I have an understanding, I believe I do, of his vision for LSU. Since I've been in the legislature, we've had 3 different presidents at LSU. Now, I've only been in the legislature 7 years. So that's another problem for us. So I would hope that with the new president, that we as a legislator and you as board members, that we do a better job communicating with LSU Baton Rouge and what your goals are for not just Shreveport. I express concern for the Ag Center and other parts of LSU that I have a vested interest and I spend a tremendous amount of time in the legislature fighting for. I also want to say that the med school, which is very, very important to me for multiple reasons. There should not be a competition between the med school in Shreveport and the med school in New Orleans, and it disturbs me when I find that happening in Baton Rouge. It creates a lot of distrust. There's not a competition. There should be a collaboration with LSU in both Shreveport and New Orleans. If it weren't for that med school in New Orleans, I wouldn't be standing here today. Because at the age of 4 in 1973, that med school in New Orleans saved my life. And I only say that because I've made it a concerted effort to make votes in that legislature that I find challenging personally, because my principles don't always allow me to vote for taxes. But I've done so at the detriment of any career I would like to have as an elected official. I did it because it was the right thing to do for the people of Louisiana. But every year, I make a concerted effort to put in appropriations specific funding requests unique to the needs of that medical school in Shreveport. And I would do the same for New Orleans. And I will, from this day forward, be doing the same for Shreveport. So I accept and I also challenge you to communicate better with me. And be cautious when you become my friend, because I believe your chairman can tell you. I put $15 million in for the Public Defender's Board 2 years ago, and he ended up in the principal's office on the 4th floor. And we ended up in a lengthy floor debate over it as well. But if it's something I believe in, there is no end in which I will go to make sure I succeed in being successful for you or anyone else in this great state. And we all know that there is an elephant in the room. I'm not here to have to bring the elephant out, but it is one in which we must address, and it can only be done through communication. And sometimes, though communication can be difficult, it can be rewarding as well. I appreciate your time. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Representative McFarland, and thank you for your efforts. I see that Senator Barrow Peacock and Representative Larry Bagley have joined us, and I thank you. Representative Jenkins, would you like to address us?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that promotion you just gave me from representative to senator. To members of the board, to President Tate, it's always good to see my good friend, Carlos Temple, board member. Thank you all so very much for being in the city of Shreveport. Thank you for holding this meeting here. It gives many of us here locally an opportunity to come forward. Certainly want to commend Chancellor Clark on the work that he's doing here at LSUS. I can tell you, regardless of party affiliation, our delegation works together in harmony to try to improve the lives of the people that live here in Northwest Louisiana or the northern part of the state, and to bring improvements to this state. I agree with my colleagues who have just spoken to you that we want to make sure that resources are coming here. The medical school and a large part of the medical community, for that matter, is located in my district, so it is a concern. I think it's an industry that has the potential to grow. I want to commend you on the selection of President Tate. I've had an opportunity to talk with him on a couple of occasions. I believe he has the leadership skills, and I also believe that he has the vision that could come into this area and help us to build and to improve in the direction that we want to go. We could talk a lot about some of the things that have occurred in the past, some of the missed opportunities. There's a lot of reason for it. I do not think the blame lies at the feet of any one institution, but I do believe that there are opportunities that lie ahead that we need to come together and work together. So I believe that's the message that I want to leave with the board today. Let's work together. Let's work as partners. Let's help the state. And please, let's do all we can to help this area of the state. And I focus a lot on the medical aspect because I do believe that this area has a golden opportunity to come together with new leadership in a lot of different places to make sure that this is a mecca for the growth of the medical industry in Northwest Louisiana. Please enjoy your stay here. Spend as much money as you want at our stores and at our shops. We'd certainly appreciate that. Do not let this be the last time you visit. Do not let the board meeting be the only reason that you visit. And thank you very much for this opportunity to address you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. I still haven't seen Representative Glover, but I understand he's here.
He's back there.
Would you like to speak, Mr. Glover?
Good morning, Chairman Starnes, Dr. Tate, members of the board, my fellow legislative colleagues. I'm honored to be here, and I welcome all of you all who are visiting to what I one day hoped, envisioned would be the next great city of the South. Unfortunately, and we're not making very much progress towards that, and part of the reason as to why that is so is expressed by the comments that you heard from Representative Thomas Presser. I want to personally thank him for picking up this mantle and advancing this issue. He effectively represents the third generation of Shreveport area residents who has been attempting to bring this to the attention of the balance of our state. It goes all the way back to one of our predecessors, former Representative P.J. Mills, who in a 1968 article in the Shreveport Times lamented the fact that a 3-year-old LSU Shreveport was only getting about 63% of its requested funding from the state in comparison to 93% that was being granted to LSU Alexandria. You advance forward to the study that Representative Presley referenced from 1994, time period that, if I'm not mistaken, Rep, you would have been first grade, 8? I had him at 6, but 8 years old. I was 28, was a first-term member of the Shreveport City Council, and was a part of that effort. That was not only the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce, it was the city of Shreveport, city of Bossier City, Bossier Chamber, both parishes, and a host of other regional stakeholders who came together and said, in the aftermath of the 1980s era oil bust that did tremendous damage to this area's economy, that we needed to figure out a way to more effectively diversify, grow, and expand our economy. And so they in turn reached out to a young man by the name of Ed Morrison, economic development consultant, and retained him to come to Shreveport and evaluate our situation and give us a list of recommendations that might give us some better options and some better outcomes. And he issued that report in February of 1994, a time when Rep. Presley was 8, I was 28, and Shreveport was still yet very hopeful that Northwest Louisiana's best days were still ahead of us. Mr. Morrison said these words in presenting his study entitled "A Time to Choose" to the people of this region. He said that future economic growth will occur where there is a critical mass of technically sophisticated workers, scientists, and engineers with global linkages with other centers of technology development. Thus, this report concludes the long-term prospects of Northwest Louisiana depend on expanding investment in research, technology, and technology transfer. The means by which Shreveport Bossier can and must establish its place as a technologically sophisticated center is by strengthening the higher education enterprise in its midst. That was 28 years ago when young Presley was second, third grade. Still enough time to build a better future for him and his generation. I'm sure part of what prompts him to take this mantle on in the way in which he has over the last several weeks, and with the level of vim and vigor, which has been quite vigorous, and I commend him for that, is based upon the fact that, like my generation, it's the beginning of the Gen Xers, he probably finds himself here in Shreveport pretty lonely when it comes to his fellow classmates, his generation, people who were born in this community, educated in this community, wanted to come back to this community, but did not find the opportunity and the ability to be able to do so. Those numbers were substantial for my generation. They are precipitous for his. Mr. Morrison told us what it is that we needed to do in order to be able to more effectively position ourselves to try and take advantage of that opportunity. We also laid out various means and strategies that he went over to attempt to do that. Those efforts were not successful. The most substantial of which was a decade ago, for which we were given a substantial number of promises about what we would do about the problem. When I returned back to the legislature in 2016, one of the first things I did was to request, what's the status of the LSU Shreveport Total Commitment Plan? Was told that, well, we're no longer issuing those reports right now because we've come up with a more universal strategy for the university system, or for the system as a whole. What that manifested for me, especially from a visual standpoint, is that what used to be blue and gold colors for this institution were replaced by purple and gold. What used to be an old English font was replaced with the standard flagship LSU font with a white S placed at the end. What used to be a pilot as the mascot replaced by, Dr. Clark, tell me, is it a LSU marsh monster or beast or something? I'm not quite sure what it is, but it's certainly not a pilot. All of those are nice, but they're not substantive. And they don't lead towards a shifting of the trajectory that this city and this region is on right now. And so, what I said in 2019, when I brought back Chairman Fannon's bill from 2012, was that I don't stand before you today wearing an LSU jersey. I don't stand before you today wearing a Louisiana Tech jersey or Southern jersey or any other. I stand before you today wearing the jersey of Shreveport, Bossier, and Northwest Louisiana, telling you that the status quo that we are in the midst of right now is unsatisfactory, and that if we do not figure out a way to change it and alter it, our future is not very positive, certainly nowhere approaching great. And to sum it up in a way that Rep. Presley referenced as well, since 2007, forward to this present year, institutions within the Shreveport-Bossier area specifically have not only received less National Institutes of Health funding, a region, mind you, that has a four-year campus of the state flagship, has one of the 140 academic medical centers in this country, has received not only less NIH funding than Pennington and Baton Rouge, Louisiana Tech and Ruston, UL and Lafayette, and all the other institutions between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, obviously. This region has in fact received less NIH funding than Dillard and Xavier. Now, we can come here and say nice things and what have you, but that stark reality is one that we need to become not only familiar with, but hopefully, like Rep. Presley, concerned, motivated, energized, and driven to say that needs to change. And it needs to change as soon as possible. Otherwise, as I shared with Rep. Presley as well as he began on this effort, so you'll find yourself seeing the next 2 decades pass. And instead of being 38, you'll be 58. And you'll be here in Shreveport. That's now 2 decades worse than it is right now, wondering what is it that could or should have happened in the intervening time that might have made a difference. So I'm glad that he's here, leading us old dogs on this charge, coming before you all here today, telling you that we need better, and we need better now. Thank you much. Enjoy yourselves in Shreveport, Bossier, Northwest Louisiana.
Thank you, Representative Glover. Representative Bagley, did you want to address this? All right, Senator Peacock? All right. Outstanding.
The House and the Senate can work together.
Hardly. Go ahead.
No, the Senate always gets the last word.
You're right.
That's why I called him first.
Member of the Board of Directors, President Tate, others here. I am Larry Bagley, Representative District 7, who is part of Shreveport. I'm not quite as eloquent a speaker as the previous speaker, but I do know this. I came to school here in 1971, right after I remember going from a 2-year institution to a 4-year. The campus hadn't changed much, and Dr. Tate and I have had a couple of conversations about what I thought was wrong. I'm not going to air those publicly because I don't really think it's time to do that. I think we have more major problems in the fact that we're trying to get some highways built that are being opposed by people that have spoken today. I don't think that the history or the Shreveport going forward is going to be helped as long as we are like this we are today. As far as people moving in, we're moving them out. There's a good way to go outside of town, not to come in. So that's my problem, as I see. I will say this. March the 1st, Mardi Gras Day, when all of you were getting ready to go party and play, I woke up at 2:30 with a pain in my chest. And I called 911 and took 2 baby aspirin, and luckily the ambulance station is right behind my house. And I took 2 baby aspirin, walked outside, got in the bus, and passed away. They took electric shock, and they shocked me back to life. And they took me and gave me 2 stents. This was at LSU at the hospital at Oshner. And because of that, and because I've certainly been a big push for Oshner and LSU here to remain viable, they did save my life. I walked out. I was in the hospital Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, walked out on Thursday, went back to work on Monday. I have not missed a day. So I certainly give them plenty of credit. I'm not going to criticize them or people here. Again, if I have something to tell you, I'll tell you in private, and we can solve those things that way. But I do appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bagley. Senator Peacock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you all for being here today. This is a good turnout of your Board of Supervisors. I know in the past there have been meetings up here and it hadn't been as full, so I'm glad to see as many of you here in Shreveport-Bossier. And 10 years ago, I was new to the legislature, and we did have the bill by Chairman Fannin dealing with just LSUS. And we did get the commitment plan, and it was a 5-year commitment plan to report back. And that was done by LSUS. I reached out. But I do have to commend the change on this campus. Dr. Clark, you have done fantastic. You have self-generated funds. You have done stuff, bringing this into a vibrant thing. There's more improvement that needs to be met, and that challenge is there, and I know you're working for it. You don't rest. So he has done a fantastic job with LSUS. I understand the frustration of Representative Presley, and I share a lot of it. And I do want to see LSU, Baton Rouge, start looking like a true statewide university. And I mentioned yesterday to Wayne Brown, who's my landlord, that sometimes I feel like LSU, instead of LSU, is Baton Rouge University. And that needs to change. Y'all really need to have a focus greater than just the flagship, Baton Rouge, but across the state. And I also think you need to do a better PR job talking to the media, getting out there, expressing what's great about LSU. When we had issues with the medical school up here with funding between BRF and lawsuits were going on, LSU every single day up here, it seemed like, was getting pounded in the media. And I'd reach out to my friend Jason Drotty and say, our legal counsel won't let us respond. And Jason does a great job for y'all too. Y'all have got to get out there and start responding and saying what's great about LSU. And not only to the legislature, but to the media. You need to tell them what's great about here. Now I think what is happening here with the frustration is, Dr. Clark, you've done a great job. It is also including the medical school. 10 years ago, the medical school wasn't in the plan, it wasn't involved. I think now you're seeing that there's a frustration that is the medical school, and the one with LSUS is still sort of an undercurrent, but the improvements are there. So our medical school needs your support. We don't have a chancellor. We have an interim chancellor. Dr. Lewis has done a great job. I've enjoyed working with him. But there has to be this understanding. Give these institutions the ability to flourish, and they will make you look fantastic. They really will. That's something that our home of Shreveport-Bossier, we were supposed to have 2 riverboats. We've got now 5. One's about to reopen in the next year. Foundation is going to buy Diamond Jacks, and they want to be in this market. We weren't supposed to be good in the movie industry. After Katrina, the movie industry loved this area. if our state will commit, if LSU will commit to Shreveport-Bossier, Dr. Tate, you will be the most successful president of LSU's history, because you will truly become a system instead of just Baton Rouge University. So focus on Shreveport-Bossier. Support the medical school, support LSUS, bring them together. The more that this campus on Erie Drive can work with Kings Highway and vice versa and leverage that dynamics between them and have the research dollars, the better. We have been through a lot in the last 10 years in this city with the commitment plan, then the funding wasn't there for the medical school. I mean, it was, I remember having to scrounge and work and beg my colleagues for $50 million one year to keep that medical school open. And that wasn't really out in the press, but it was something that when we showed that to Christy Nichols under the general administration, they got it, and they made sure the money got there. Because of legacy costs and closing down, that was just, they have been hamstrung to do that. We're now turning that corner. Your budget is back in place. Your operation with Osher is working. But there's so much potential. Increase that research and let them work together and be that. And, you know, I have mixed feelings about this. I went to LSU, and one reason I can get up here and speak on the thing is because Glenn Sumners in the internal audit program, when I'd walk into his classroom, would say, give us a 10-minute speech on something real quick, and that scared the you-know-what out of me, but somehow I made it through the class. But support these universities and support these students, and they will make LSU look truly fantastic. Instead of just being a flagship, you need a whole fleet. That's your nuclear submarine right there in the medical school, and that's your destroyer. And if you don't have them, you don't have a fleet, and you're not a flagship. So I thank y'all for being here today, and I'm sorry I'm running in late.
Thank you. Good to see you again, Senator.
And I need to speak to you about a bill. That's what I called you about yesterday. Yeah.
All right, I'll get with you.
And not LSU related.
When we break, I'll get with you.
Okay, thank
Good
you.
to see you here. I see our friend, Representative Horton. Would you like to speak with us?
I feel inadequate to address you all. I mean, you do such a fantastic job, and who am I, just a servant of the people? I don't know what I can add to my colleagues, but one thing we all do stand together, and that's in LSU Med School in Shreveport, and the entire LSU system. Hello, Dr. Tate. Like you, we did not have anything to do with the contract. We were not in negotiations, nor were we privy to it. We didn't know how horrible it was with LSU Med School inheriting all the legacy costs until after the fact. Hello, Kimberly. But I do know that to be one LSU system, we all need to be included in some major funding and support. We do exist up here. We do have the Haynesville Shale. That's one of the greatest things that's going financially for Louisiana. And so I thank you, Mr. Brown, for your service and representing us well up here in North Louisiana. And I just thank y'all for considering us, remembering us, and let us have a little bit of equality in the funding, because we need that to succeed. And we all bleed purple and gold. And so I thank you for the opportunity of being here, and thank you for the opportunity to serve you.
Thank you very much, Representative Horton. We are at recess from the board meeting, but we will break at this time for lunch, and we'll come back and convene the athletic committee.
Mr. Chair, I want to make a comment. Sure. How many people for real? How many is he hiring? He's hiring 2 people. He brought
We will reconvene at 1:15. We will reconvene at 1:15. Mr. Temple, would you please convene the athletics committee?
How you been? Good job? I'm doing okay. I'm okay. There's a master's upstairs. I saw Tiger Woods do that birdie yesterday on number 16.
That's amazing.
And the crowd.
Right there.
One of the guys
All right.
there told me.
Come on now.
Rich has been losing since we was more like that.
Winston.
Ask
He
Ms.
come back
Griffin to
around.
call
I'd be
the roll.
surprised if he does.
Ms. Griffin,
Easy going.
is she here?
Yes.
I gotta have that roll call, Ms. Griffin.
How'd you watch?
Gotta have a roll call.
I took it with me for the first time.
Mr. Temple?
Wait a minute, Ms. Griffin. Mr. Starnes is driving. I'm gonna try to get some grace period to a couple of my colleagues. Sit down, colleagues.
No grace period. Let's get this thing going.
Come on, Remy, give me a break. Mr. Brown.
I'm sitting down, Raymond.
Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown.
Call the roll.
Mr. Brown, come on, sit down. Remy's on my back. Call the roll, please. Call the roll, sister.
Mr. Temple?
Present.
Mr. Blossman? Mr. Armenter? Mr. Brown?
He's coming. I'm here. He's right behind.
Mr. Damp? Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Morrow?
Here.
Ms. Werner? Mr. Williams? Okay. You can begin. There's a quorum.
Anybody else? Here we are. Our president's on his way in.
Can you get 3 sacks of big crawfish for college next Friday?
Yeah. At this time, we're gonna ask Mr. DeQueer to present the items regarding athletics. Mr. DeQueer, the floor is yours.
Yes, Board Member Temple. To be quick and summary, these are the long-form contracts of the term sheets that the board approved at the last meeting. All of the compensation numbers remain the same. So the first long-form contract we have is for head coach Brian Kelly. The terms are in your binder. They're the same terms that were presented last month.
All right. So, may I have a motion to accept this particular item?
I move.
Been moved by Mr. Zuchlard, seconded by Mr. Morrow. All those in favor? The ayes have it, and so ordered. The next item.
Excuse me, Mr. Zuschlag is not on athletics, so he
Not
can't
on
make.
athletics, so we're gonna let Mr. Morrow
I'll move.
make the motion. We get a second from Valencia. Ms. Jones gives us a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. The ayes have it, and it's so ordered. Moving along, the next item.
The next item, we'll take number 2 and 3 together. Item number 2 are the long-form contracts for all of the assistant coaches. Their compensation rates are the same as were presented at the last board meeting. Item number 3 is an amendment to the assistant coach of Brad Davis. He was a carryover coach, and we are simply amending his incentive compensation to be the same as the other 10 assistant coaches. So if we could approve those 2 items together.
Do we have any questions regarding either of these 2 items? If not, I ask for a motion that they be approved. It's moved by Mr. Morrow, seconded by Ms. Jones. All in favor? Let it be known by saying aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. Item 4.
Yes, Mr. Temple, this is a new contract for our current head women's volleyball coach. It is a 5-year term at a guaranteed compensation of $250,000 a year. The contract is in your binder, and it is in order.
Do we have any questions regarding this particular item? If there are none, get a motion. It's been moved by Valencia, seconded by Mr. Morrow. All in favor? So ordered. And item 5.
And the last item is the term sheet for the head men's basketball coach. The term is from March of 2022 through June 30th of 2029 with a minimum base compensation of $2.6 million a year and it will escalate incrementally over the term. The term sheet is in your binder. If we could get approval of the term sheet at our next board meeting, we will then have the long-form contract for him and his assistant coaches, which we're working on right now.
Thank you, Mr. DeQueer. Are there any questions from any members? Get a motion. It's been moved by Valencia, seconded again by Mr. Morrow. All in favor of this particular item, let it be known by saying aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. If there are no other questions regarding athletics, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn this committee, please. Been moved by Ms. Jones, seconded by Mr. Zuschlag. Meeting's adjourned. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Temple. At this time, before we go back to reconvene the board meeting, I would like to take another moment of privilege. Is Dr. Philip Roseman here? Yes. I understand you'd like to address the board. Please approach.
I'm Philip Roseman. I'm a physician, a cardiologist here in town. I graduated from LSU Shreveport. I graduated from LSU Health Science Center in Shreveport. And I've been very active at LSUS as a board chair at the LSUS Foundation, alumnus of the year, and founder of the Shreveport-Bossier Imperative. I didn't know the legislative body was going to be here to kind of speak with you about LSU Shreveport, but I'd like to come at it from a different approach, which is that of just a civilian, a community member here who loves LSUS. I'm here to share a community perspective on our hopes and dreams for LSUS, a university with great potential. I wrote in the Times 12 years ago, our community is interested in moving LSUS from good to great, and that's still the case. 12 years ago, the Shreveport-Bossier Imperative put together a leadership of the Shreveport and Bossier Chambers of Commerce, the Community Foundation, the Committee of 100, mayors and parish administrators, and all the higher education institution chancellors in Northwest Louisiana. We were put together to advocate for higher education enterprise of Northwest Louisiana during a particular hard time for higher education in our state, and many of you remember that. We advocated at the system, at the Board of Regents, at the legislative level, about specific needs at our different colleges. On the global level, we looked at it to determine priorities for advocacy. At that time, in 2010, Shreveport-Bossier's greatest need was a four-year university, comprehensive university with research capacity in the metropolitan area. We were then, and still are now, one of only a handful of mid-sized metro areas that don't have a comprehensive research four-year university. So we commissioned Eva Klein years ago to evaluate the best strategies to reach that goal. The report was supported by the Board of Regents. It was paid for by our community. I think y'all probably talked about it earlier. The lead recommendation was consolidation of Louisiana Tech and LSU Shreveport that made its way through the House Education Committee and to the floor of the House, but didn't garner enough votes to go further. What really turned the tide on that was the LSU Systems development of the LSUS Commitment Plan as an investment and a promise in the future of LSU Shreveport. That commitment plan explored how LSUS might create a greater research and development post-secondary education for the people of our city. The plan laid out a significant investment in LSUS. It promised great collaboration. In the cover letter of the report, Dr. Lombardi wrote, and I quote, "The key elements in this plan's success is the recommendation that all LSU institutions have a commitment to the success of LSUS. To move academic initiatives into operation quickly and effectively, the strong support of the Board of Supervisors for this initiative has been a critical element in the mobilization of the necessary academic resources to move this agenda forward. By the end of 2013, the implementation of the plan was to be completed. It never really gained much traction. Most of the plan wasn't realized, but the plan remains as yet another reminder of the need for support for LSU Shreveport. Recently, I read the EAB Global Report that was commissioned by the Board of Regents, and I recommend that as an excellent report, incredibly well done document, built on a lot of useful data and a great analysis of that data. The report lays out a future path for LSUS built on student and market demand. It's a foundation for improvement, I think, is right up Dr. Clark's alley. It outlines the importance for LSUS to develop strengths in business management, computer science, and healthcare. It also points to areas where LSUS underperforms and where there's need for improvement. And there is guidance in the report if our state is serious about building a greater higher ed enterprise at LSUS. We believe there is a way LSUS and Northwest Louisiana can work together with the flagship and play a major role in a new day at LSU. Not as an add-on, but I think as a hub. This is specifically in the focus areas of biotechnology and cyber and military science. In biotechnology, we have LSU Health Science Center, BRF, Louisiana Tech, the WK Ochsner Health Systems, and more. In cyber and military science, we have Barstow Air Force Base, a 4-star general, Global Strike Command, Cyber Innovation Center, and the I-20 corridor and more. The point is that these focus areas that Northwest Louisiana has expertise also have relationships and capacity. And working together, I think we can go make great strides in what has been planned out by our new strategy at LSU. So our ask is now the same as it was a dozen years ago. It's to find ways to support and grow an enterprise at LSU Shreveport in this metro area. To do this is going to require the commitment that's noted in the cover letter of the first LSU commitment plan that I understand y'all talked about earlier today, that all LSU institutions have a commitment to the success of each other, and specifically to LSU Shreveport as we talk today. We want to be trusted to lead and innovate in this community, not just as an add-on in the new LSU strategic plan, rather with that trust, reap the benefits of that leadership. The benefits to us would be moving together to go from good to great on this LSU campus. Thank you for all you do for the LSU system, all you do for the state. I know y'all spend countless hours volunteering, doing this work. And as a community member that's also active in other things, I can tell you that I'm very thankful for the work that's been done and your support of LSU Shreveport. I guess I'm just asking for more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to reconvene the board meeting. Ms. Griffith, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Starnes?
Here.
Ms. Jones? Here. Mr. Damp? Ms. Aguilera? Here. Mr. Armenter?
Here.
Ms. Aronson? Mr. Blossman? Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Mallett?
Here.
Mr. Morris?
Here.
Mr. Morrow?
Here.
Mr. Temple?
Here.
Ms. Werner?
Here.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Woods?
Here.
Mrs. Zuschlag?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, there's a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Griffith. The next item on the agenda is recommendation to amend bylaws relative to nominating committee, board officers in the agenda. This is a matter that we've taken up several times. It has been properly noticed as per the last board meeting. It's difficult to imagine how we've had any confusion on these matters at all, yet we still do. I've been either a member of a board, a lawyer for a board for close to 25 years. I've attended hundreds of board meetings. It's a head scratcher about why we have an issue with bylaws. What it shows, I believe, is we need a standing bylaws committee that we don't have. I didn't think we needed one, but The difficulties with strengthening our school has shown me that we probably do. However, that will be for someone else to wrestle with. At this time, I will appoint a bylaws committee, an ad hoc bylaws committee, to address bylaws issues until such time as it becomes a standing committee, if at all. I would like to appoint Ms. Jones as the chair, Mr. Damp, Mr. Armentor, Mr. Blossman, Mr. Mallett, Mr. Morrow, and Mr. Williams to this ad hoc committee. I would like for them to address the items that were on the agenda today, which are the length of the term of the chair, the number of supervisors it takes to place something on the agenda, as well as the other issues that we have thought about in terms of bylaws related to the faculty senate. I would ask the president to appoint some staff and also the senate, the faculty senate, to also collaborate with this group to find the right bylaws amendments, if any, to address these issues. And I would like for these comments to serve as formal notice of saying, so that we can properly address them after this ad hoc bylaws committee does their work at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Supervisors. So, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the March 3rd and 4th meeting. Supervisors, the minutes are in your materials. These minutes have been previously provided. Are there any questions? Without any questions, I will accept a motion to adopt the minutes of the meeting.
Make a motion.
Motion by Supervisor Temple. Second. Second by Supervisor Mallett. Without objection, the minutes are approved. The next item is reports to the board. We have one report to the board for acceptance approval. It's the Affiliated Entities Reimbursement Report. Is there a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Mallett, seconded by Supervisor Temple. Without objection, that report is accepted. The next item is report from faculty and staff advisors. The report of the staff advisors has been submitted in the written materials and it has been provided. The report of the faculty advisor is going to be presented by Dr. Notoriani. I'm sorry. Dr. Notoriani.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Notoriani, professor and neurosurgeon here at LSU Health Shreveport. I'm presenting on behalf of our faculty senate representatives. What we ask of the board today are just a few items. Resolutions were recently passed by the LSU Baton Rouge Faculty Senate and the Association of Louisiana Faculty Senates that affirm the commitment of faculty in the LSU system and statewide to the protection of tenure and academic freedom. We appreciate the support of the Board of Supervisors and the LSU administration on these efforts. The faculty have not heard back about plans for faculty council meetings as detailed in the Board of Supervisor regulations. Time is growing short to plan and hold meetings of such magnitude. The LSU Baton Rouge campus especially is challenging in regards to this, given the necessity for an in-person meeting to comply with Louisiana open meeting laws. We look forward to setting dates, times, and place to assist with these agendas. The Faculty Senate also requests a timeline and implementation strategy for feedback of the Board of Supervisors bylaws and regulations that pertain to the faculty. I appreciate Chairman Starnes on recognizing us and including us in your new ad hoc committee going forward, and we look forward to working with you for any bylaws or regulations that pertain to faculty. Particular to the LSU main campus or LSU Baton Rouge campus, but also among all our campuses, Communications among the LSU campuses remains challenging and problematic. Notably, faculty with appointments in both campuses or multiple campuses do not have continued access to their LSU email accounts. Faculty have long called for better communication among the campuses in hopes that the Board of Supervisors will focus attention on a problem that has complicated communications among campuses and faculty for decades. The faculty have not been appraised of the status of the large-scale DEI initiatives, including a committee that focused on building names initiated by President Galligan. Updates are requested by the Senate. In particular to the Baton Rouge campus, environmental protection options, recycling, chargers for electric cars, responsible energy use, and alternative energy sources seem quite limited, and a focus initiative in line with the Pentagon of Protection is encouraged. And lastly, this is a very well sought after topic from all of our faculty across multiple campuses, is a resolution passed by the Baton Rouge Faculty Senate, a resolution for fair and equitable cost of living salary adjustments for LSU faculty at the March 23rd meeting, calls on the university to include a 5.9% cost of living adjustment for faculty in the fiscal year 2023 university budget recommended by the president of LSU and board of supervisors to the state legislature. And we would appreciate your support. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Notoriani.
Thank
Anyone
you.
have any questions of her? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Mr. President, it's time. Would you give your report?
First, let me say it's good to be here in Shreveport. Really appreciated the engagement. This morning, we gave the charge to the committee that will be hiring the next leader of the LSU Shreveport Health Sciences Center. We're very excited about that. Chancellor Clark is going to chair that committee. There are 22 members of that committee representing the various constituencies that exist in the Health Science Center, as well as community representation. We're very excited about it. Just to give you some sense of how this works, typically, a search of this sort for an outstanding leader of a health science center can take up to a year to 18 months. It's a very arduous process to identify the appropriate person for a position of this type. So we'll need everyone fully engaged, but I'm confident that at the end of it, we will have an outstanding permanent leader for that institution. The other piece that I'd like to say is a tad bit more personal. Some don't know when I arrived at LSU, they often ask you, you're going to be a faculty member. Yes. And I had a faculty appointment in Baton Rouge, but one of the first things I asked for was a faculty appointment at the Health Science Center here in Shreveport. And I say that because from the time I arrived, the Health Science Center in Shreveport was extremely important to me personally. I don't want that to be lost. We've had some wonderful conversations about how we can assist and be a greater supporter of the Shreveport campuses. And I want to say that I don't have to be convinced of that. I started that way, and I'm not going to, and if you know me personally, you know what that really means, that we'll knock down walls to make sure that the resources are provided. I will say here in the company of my colleagues in Shreveport that one of the things that I know from my own academic work is that universities do not drive the economy. The economy drives universities. However, in tandem with people on the ground in the community, it's feasible to build things that are unimaginable. And so I'm extremely excited about the next step that's happening here at LSU, which is my second point. We are in the middle of a strategic planning process. I wouldn't even call it the middle. We're at the very beginning of a strategic planning process that will have two layers to it. One will, of course, be what happens with the LSU system and our LSU family members, and there'll be representation from across our system to plan the goals for our system. And then each campus will have their own individual planning process, which is extremely important that they do that because they are independent entities within the family, and they should be able to lay out their strategic goals. And what we're going to try to do is knit together the goals for the system and the goals that exist for each institution. That's going to require community input. That's going to require a lot of hard work over the next year or so, and we're excited about that. It also means when we speak of resources, this is where the planning process is extremely important because that's where you're going to begin to make clear the kinds of resources that are needed in order to achieve the plan. Both philanthropic and state allocated will have to be really well understood. And so I'm excited to work with colleagues here in Shreveport on that front in Eunice, Alexandria, New Orleans, and Baton Rouge. It is a real opportunity for us to do something great. It also is another signal that's, that I would say to you is, without declaring, it also means that it's time probably for a different capital campaign. And, but I'm not declaring anything yet. I'm just saying that whenever you see a strategic planning process begin, it's generally a signal to those of us who speak higher ed speak that that's what's getting ready to happen. For those who don't speak it, you just kind of been forewarned, right? So that's partly what has to happen. And then I'd like to add this. Something happened over the last couple of days. My phone blew up, and people said they saw a video of our Pentagon plan. And then when I arrived here in Shreveport, several faculty members came up to me and said, we saw ourselves in that video. And what I would like to acknowledge is something that's extremely important. It's important that we as a body make sure everyone is visible. Every institution, all the research, all the community engagement, and everything that we do. Now, I'm not going to go on an archaeological dig of the past. I've been here 9 months, so I don't really have to own it. I just have to live with it. But the reality is, I want this body and my community members to hold us account to one simple thing. Are we telling the story of every single entity in our family? And you're not a family member if you don't tell stories. I know about that. So we've got to make sure on a communication front that our story is being told and the total family is included. I think it's extremely important. I'm going to ask the Board of Supervisors to hold us account on that. There are so many good things happening in this system. For my Board of Supervisor colleagues, I know you get an email with every single thing that happens in the newspaper. That's just a small surface level of the great things that are happening here. And I will say over the last 9 months, the trend line on that, because I do positive and negatives, the trend line has been positive in those stories. But we're not, we've got to work really hard to make sure everybody who we touch in our family sees us recognizing them. And so I will take that on as part of my charge as a communication function. I say that to my colleagues who are in the audience as well as our legislative friends. There are great things happening here in Shreveport and all across the LSU family, and we've got to be sure to communicate them. And that, sir, ends my report.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you again for your leadership. All the great things that are happening here in the correct and right direction that we're headed, I think is directly a result of your strong leadership, and I thank you for it. And in keeping with the words you just said about including the entire LSU family, I wanted to hear from all of our schools, and that's why we put the Chancellor's report on this agenda. I'd like to begin with Dr. Eubanks, and go from right to left, but I wanted to hear from you first. And so I'd like to hear what we're doing in all of our schools. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that opportunity. I'm here today on behalf of Dr. Luke Laborde for the LSU Ag Center. And just to share a few quick points with you of what's going on. We were very happy on Giving Day that we raised $61,000 that's going toward the Dean's Excellent Fund and the Student Services, and also to assist us in renovating and upgrading our Camp Grant Walker. Camp Grant Walker is where the 4-Hers go during the summer. We're celebrating 100 years of that campground this year, so we are very excited about that. Also, the Central Research Station, we renamed that Central Research Station after Vice Chancellor Emeritus Doyle Chambers. That's a farm that's near the LSU campus with over 300 acres with field plots and laboratories and greenhouses. So the Chambers family was with us, and they have recommitted to what they're going to do for the LSU Ag Center and moving forward. But one of the things I'm most proud about, because we move forward and we're here for the children, Ag Magic is back. After 2 years of the pandemic and not being able to have that, but Ag Magic is an interactive journey through Louisiana agriculture, allowing kindergarten, elementary students to be able to come and to see the animals, to see the alligators, the crocodiles, to be able to squeeze the chicks, if I would say. And this past week, we had over 5,000 young folks that came through. And some of those people may come on to LSU to be a vet or to major in some other area and everything. So we had 140 schools. And also what's exciting for the LSU Ag Center is the number of volunteers that we have. We had over 1,000 volunteers that came forth to assist us in that effort to realize that we can't do it alone. For those that may be interested in seeing Ag Magic, Dr. Paul Carrell will let you know that in Central Louisiana on April 13th, we will have Ag Magic there. Ag Magic is not just held in Baton Rouge. We do it on the river. We do it here during the state fair where they're able to come and to see. So that's just a few things that I wanted to share with you today on behalf of the LSU Ag Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eubanks. Chancellor Sorensen.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Starnes. Good afternoon to the Board of Supervisors, President Tate, and guests. On March 28th, we had the great good fortune of pairing up with the LSU College of Ag with us at reception for our senators and our legislators at the Pentagon. We think that that was very successful and went very well. We are partnering with Ochsner Lafayette General Hospital in a new initiative in respiratory care, and that is to create a registered apprenticeship in respiratory care. It will be the first in the state, and we believe that it will be a national model, and this will specifically target attracting students into respiratory care from chronically underserved populations. So we're very excited about that. We have also just submitted a HRSA grant in partnership with Ochsner Lafayette General to support respiratory care. I'm proud to say that we were included in the omnibus bill by Senator Cassidy for $1 million in equipment for allied health. We are very, very grateful for this. And we are ramping up the private committee work to raise private and partnership funds for the STEAM Innovation Center and athletics. And so we are engaging consultants to help us with these two major capital campaigns, and these are really the first of its kind for LSU Eunice. I think this is very timely that that our computer science program is undergoing accreditation, national accreditation in the Association of Technology Management and Applied Engineering. And we also need to ramp up our programs in business and technology, hoping to create transfers into cybersecurity at LSUS and elsewhere. And that is my report.
Thank you. Chancellor Clark.
Good afternoon, Chairman Starnes and to the members of the Board of Supervisors. This morning you heard a great deal from our legislators, and then after lunch here from Dr. Philip Roseman. And as Chancellor, as I listen to the comments they make, I'm reminded that in June 2014, there was a Board of Supervisors meeting in this very room. You were turned a different direction. You were facing that direction to the north, not to the west, or not from the west to the east as you are today. But in that, Cedric Glover, whom you heard from earlier today, welcomed the Board of Supervisors that morning, and I was not yet Chancellor. It was June of 2014. I became Chancellor on July 1st of 2014. And after Representative Glover, then Mayor Glover, made his welcome, and he was coming back up through the hallway outside there, I went over to say hello to him. As you supervisors know, I was here from 81 to 94 as a business school dean, from 85 to 94. And I taught a leadership course while I was here. And the leadership course was in the MBA program. And Cedric Glover would come to my class and speak. I wanted our students to know different kinds of speakers, many non-traditional to what many of our white MBA students would encounter. And Cedric Glover was one of those individuals who came to my class. And as Representative then Mayor Glover came down the hall, he saw me and said, "Hi, Doc, how are you?" He knew me from being in class. And again, I was about 20 days away from becoming Chancellor. And he said to me, "I want you to know something. I'm still committed to what I think should have happened with the LSUS commitment plan, the merger that didn't happen. I'm going to stay on that. It has nothing to do with you, Doc. I thank you. You know, our relationship is something different." And so I will tell you, when you hear Representative Glover come in here, he comes with sincerity. He comes with consistency in terms of his messaging. There are times when what he wants and what I want aren't the same, and we agree to disagree. But I would tell you, he comes sincerely. And I think that you had other representatives and senators come before you today, and Philip Roseman as well, for both Chancellor Lewis and for me. They come with sincerity. Their messaging may be such that there's room for discussion and debate. I had that with Representative Glover. But I thank you, Chairman Starn, I thank you for the fact that the board is here, for the fact that the board has been engaging. President Tate, I thank you very much. They do want to hear from you. As has been pointed out, 3 chancellors in the last 7 years, and so your leadership on behalf, just speak for myself, I won't for David, but thank you for what you've done to showing in terms of what One LSU means and why we're a part of that. And we're very proud to be a part of that. And speaking on behalf of LSU Shreveport, we don't want to be a part of anyone else or anything else than what we are here. And we thank you, the board, for your support for what you've always shown for us. We thank you for that. We had something that finally opened up just this week, and it's not fully opened up. I was able to catch several of you. You know me, I'm always going to sell you and show you something, and I always want to show you and brag about things we're doing. But it's our Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement. And Dr. Keena Franklin is the head of that, and she's very well known here. And some of you saw it. It puts on the main street, so to speak, of our University Center the focus. We are, with pride, we're a public urban metropolitan university. And by definition, if you look at the demographics of Shreveport-Bossier, that means that we have to be very focused and respectful and welcoming of diverse students. And so downstairs, you will see that new diversity center. We've had one, but we have the position. And I have to thank the LSU A&M campus that helped provide us vision, understanding of what it could and should be. And so we spent time on the LSU A&M campus learning. And I think that's something that people need to know also. We learn from each other, us chancellors in our universities, on what One LSU can be. But we're very proud of that. And I'd encourage you, if you have opportunity as you leave, take a look in there. Again, we've had furniture hasn't arrived. It took us a while just to get some of the things to have the facility built. It's what we're living in today, but it's open. And it's very important for us, and we're very pleased about it. When I became the semester before I became chancellor in 2014, we had 3,300 students who were not dual enrollment. We had some 725 students that were dual enrollment. So we looked to be 4,000. But as Mike Woods, one of our major supporters, says, take out the dual enrollment students. How many real students do you have? And sometimes people say, take out your online students. How many real students do you have? And I remind them that Joe Burrow took all his classes online, so don't take out the online students. But anyway, we're sitting well over 8,500 students right now. And there's there's some 200 some are dual enrollment, so take them out. Puts us still around 8,500 versus 3,300 in the spring semester of 2014. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So I hope we don't lose that in terms of when we talk about what LSU Shreveport ought to be. Those online students, many of them here in this state, have caused that to give us the ability to do what we're doing. And they're very real students to us. And we're very well committed. And we're working with LSU Online to make that even stronger. And they're working with us. And that's very important to us. And so I just mentioned that. And I'll mention also, if I may, that LSUS has more African-American students at the graduate level than any other university, public university in the state of Louisiana, including Southern University, including LSU A&M. It does matter. Now, I'll tell you, 40% of our total are in state. So in terms of, you're going to talk about real students that are here in Louisiana, but still, the number of students of color that are gaining an education through LSU Shreveport, through online, is very important in terms of the social economic issues. And so, again, I just would encourage that be understood. And I know I wasn't supposed to take this forum to do it. I can't help myself. I thank you for the fact that you chose to be here.
Thank you, sir. Chancellor Correll?
Mr. Chairman, what's the field of study of those students?
The fields of studies are very diverse, including education through LSU Online. We have healthcare management. We have a joint program in public health with LSU Health Shreveport. Our MBA program continues to be the strongest driver in what we do, but we are, quite frankly, damn good in online and well respected, and we have a broad reach. Some of you have heard me say about the student from Ghana, Africa, who came in this door right behind here, and she was in the MBA program, and she met up with a student that was from Ontario, California, another one from Alexandria, Virginia. That was her study team, and they did a group hug, and none of those three students had ever been to Louisiana before. Ghana, Africa, and she came with her dress, and you can see the picture of her and me back over in my office. And one other example we had Boeing outsourced their design of their next plane, the interior, to a company in the Philippines. And the senior VP ahead of that looked at the Duke Pacific Rim program, didn't go in, and came to ours. He went, looked at another program, including, quite frankly, the LSU A&M MBA program, but he chose ours because what we did in logistics just in time. He came through, he flew over and walked across the stage and told me that he had used that more than anything else in what they were doing designing that plane for Boeing. So if you think that our program doesn't have reach, it does. But what's really important, come to our graduation, and I think Supervisor Brown and Supervisor Valencia Sarpi-Jones would agree. The number of minority students walking across the stage and the number of graduates that are walking across there on the graduate programs. And we're delivering on those people with first generation coming back, whether it be an undergraduate or those who are first generation went to college, but then still looking, who maybe don't have the same opportunity for graduate work even because they're not an undergrad, we're delivering. And so I take great pride in it.
Thank you.
As you can see.
Chancellor?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, board members, Mr. President. I'm really excited to report that for 6 semesters in a row, we've broken enrollment records historically at LSUA, the highest enrollment we've had in the 60-year history. So we're growing, and I know that's been a challenge nationwide with enrollment dropping during COVID-19, but we're really excited about the fact we're still growing. it emphasizes the importance of a project y'all saw the groundbreaking for, our drainage project, which is going very, very well. We call it our beautiful mess, but they've dug up most of the campus and put in underground drainage, and we should be finished in June. So I hope y'all come back for the ribbon cutting for that. We're also very much hoping that our Student Success Center, which is up this session of the legislature for capital outlay funding, to match the $5 million that we raised privately, so we can have a groundbreaking that y'all can come to this fall for that building. And the fact that we're growing, we need the Student Success Center. I do want to report also that y'all have heard about this. We have a program we're going to be kicking off we call Sparrow. It's a special program for students with developmental disabilities. No other institution in the LSU system has done this. UL Lafayette, Nichols, Southeastern has done it as far as four-year institutions. And we're going to provide an opportunity for students with developmental disabilities to come on a campus, experience college life. We raised all private funds to do this project. And the most recent funding we got was from Congresswoman Letlow. We got community project funding of $120,000. Blue Cross Blue Shield gave us $140,000. There's tremendous community support for this, and we're very proud to be able to bring this into the LSU system. We really have grown a lot in our professional aviation. We got students in the classroom that are flying this fall. And I'll report that England Air Park has bought us a flight simulator to help train these pilots for the future. So we're getting a lot of private support from the air park as well as professional aviation companies around the community. Last thing I'll mention, one of the areas we really have focused on is on STEM training, like we all are, but we've been able to really develop a robotics program that's really unbelievably popular. We had 125 schools come in for the state competition in the mega shelter, which is next door to campus. And we're also going to start sponsoring drone competition as well for the students in many of the high schools. And there's also collegiate robotics as well. And we have a collegiate robotics team at LSUA. So we're really concentrating on growing our STEM programs in that area. So that's what I wanted to report. I want to thank you for your support. And I want to tell you it's an honor and privilege to serve as Chancellor at LSUA.
Thank you, Chancellor. Dr. Lewis?
First of all, thank you guys for coming this morning, and Chairman Starnes and others for touring. And, a number of you listened to my faculty, and I really, really appreciate that. I've got nothing but positive things about it. That made a big impact, and I truthfully appreciate you guys doing that, okay? So let me start off. I want to talk a little bit about education, research, and clinical, since those are the three things that I have to do. From an educational point of view, our big thing that's going on, we have an accreditation site visit that's up. It starts 2 weeks from Monday. This occurs every 8 years. These visits have gotten to be very draconian, and many big schools across the United States are having problems. And my team has worked night and day to prepare for this. I do want to say that as part of that, I am accredited through the LCME, through LSU, okay? And the governance of LSU is part of that whole process. And so I've made that clear to individuals that have brought up issues. But we're working diligently on the LCME. We won't know for sure what's going on until October, but we'll have a pretty good feel as it goes forward. I want to recognize our graduate school. I mean, these individuals are really the backbone of any higher education group. This is actually Graduate School Week. We have about 75 of these young people that are diligently doing research, and they really move us to the next level. And so I want to take a little time to recognize them. We had our National Match Day, and if you don't know what that is, that's where doctors, medical students figure out where they're going to go. In the United States this year, 7,500 students were unmatched. we had 1 out of 139. And we were very fortunate in that 47 of our students opted to stay in Shreveport. That's a record number. When they do medical school in Louisiana and they do their residency in Louisiana, they're going to become doctors and stay in Louisiana. That's what we see. And so we'll continue to pump out doctors that are so desperately needed throughout the state of Louisiana. Let me move to research. This continues to thrive. I think there was some things said earlier about our research. All I want to say is that 5 years ago we had $6.3 million worth of NIH funding, and there are people that have worked very, very, very hard, and it's currently approaching 20 million. I think you all know what has happened over the last 3 to 4 years in Shreveport. As our clinical operation has blossomed, we've been able to invest and bring in quality researchers, and we will continue to do that going forward. Although I will say I'm out of research space. So, and right along the same thing, the EBT lab is 2 years. We have a center of excellence in that. They've done over 600,000 tests, over 1,200 vaccines, and over 1,300 sequence. Last, clinically, we continue to thrive clinically. We now have 26 sites in North Louisiana. Before the Ochsner-LSU partnership, we had 3. And so a huge change in who we are. Another statistic is before the partnership, we had 300,000 visits a year. We're now doing 600,000 visits a year. So we've seen a doubling of our growth in North Louisiana, and that is going to continue going forward. We just acquired a large group of urologists, regional urology. Those of y'all that will be driving back to Baton Rouge will be most likely going down to Burke-Coons and getting on I-49. If you look at the corner of I-49 and Burke-Coons, there is a large facility there. It houses 7 urologists. It has a cancer treatment center in it. And so we have acquired that, and those individuals who are will be joining our faculty and will be teaching our students. And so we continue to grow, and that's obviously what it's really all about. And I want to thank you, Chairman Starnes and President Tate, for your support, sir. Thank y'all so much for what you do.
Ask a question. Ask a question.
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. First of all, thank you for a great report and all that you're doing. I know it's challenging work. You raised a great point. First of all, I want to highlight commendation for the research uptick, which I learned about when I was interviewing. And at the time, I think I talked to you and Dr. Kevel about what it would take to enhance that. And it seems transparent based upon what you said that is fundamentally about the physical infrastructure. You need to expand the physical infrastructure. Has there been any substantive conversation about what that would look like in light of the fact that we have some of our wonderful colleagues here who actually support physical infrastructure in their day-to-day work? So I mean, in all seriousness,
yes, sir.
Nobody increases their research numbers at that percentage that fast. So that's really impressive. But how do we help you?
Yeah, so so obviously seeking NCI designation requires lab space. And the last time President Tate was, or actually the first time that you visited after you became president, you went over to our research facility and you toured that, and we had a nice discussion about that. I will tell you that based on that discussion, you charged me with actually having a consultant come in and tell you what you need, and also do some other assessments. We are coming to the end of that assessment, sir. We hired somebody a while back, and so I should be able to give you that information. Part of our problem has been that Many of our labs in our main campus, which was built back, in the 70s, have been turned into offices, and so we are trying to move people out and basically starting those labs over again. But I will tell you that we're going to need a research building. There's no question about that, and that's that's the next thing that we need. Obviously, we just are halfway through a $74 million project, but we're already talking to the foundation. We're starting to work toward a new building for research, not just for cancer. It really needs to encompass all of research. So, yes, sir, we're looking into that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that.
Dr. Laverne?
So I'm Guy Laverne. I'm the Associate Executive Director and CFO for Pennington Biomedical. I'm happy to be here today on behalf of Dr. John Kerwin, who regrets that he couldn't be here. Just a few quick updates. On March 18th, Pennington Biomedical held a ribbon cutting for the official clinic opening of our new Bariatric and Metabolic Institute, where Governor Edwards, Chairman Starnes, and President Tate spoke on the program. We thank you for that support, and thanks to those members of the board that were also available to attend and support the center. The event was a great success, and it highlighted the impact that interventions like bariatric surgery have on health outcomes. We also recently announced new federal funding of $3.6 million directed by U.S. Representative Garrett Graves in the Department of Defense Appropriations Act to support programs that look at improving mental resilience and mitigating the effects of stress for members of the U.S. military. This funding builds on our 3 decades-long relationship with the Department of Defense and adds to our over 150 defense-related research projects since 1989. And lastly, in your board materials, you should have information about 2 upcoming events, a Music and the Mind Symposium and a recital by renowned musical artist Renee Fleming. Both of these events support the Pennington Biomedical Research Center, and Mrs. Paula Pennington de Laberton invites you to join her in supporting the events. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Laverne. The next item, and I thank all of you for your reports. I want to thank you, Dr. Lewis, for hosting us this morning, give us that tour, and allowing us to visit with faculty. It was fantastic and very inspiring. And Dr. Clark, thank you very much for hosting us here today. It's an honor to be with you. I thoroughly enjoy being here, and thank you for your hospitality. The next item on the agenda is approval of committee recommendations. I'll accept a motion to accept all the committee recommendations. Do I have a motion? Motion by Supervisor Morrow, second by Supervisor Werner. Without objection, the recommendations are approved. Before we get to my report, I would like to mention that our learner, our student member, this is her last scheduled meeting, Monica Aguilera. And she's been an incredibly active and wonderful presence at all of our gatherings. And I have a resolution I'd like to read into the record, and I ask for the supervisors to approve it. And this is a resolution honoring Monica Aguilera for her service as a student member of the LSU Board of Supervisors.
Thank you.
Whereas Ms. Monica Aguilera Perez resides in Forest Hill, Louisiana. Whereas Ms. Aguilera chose to attend LSU of Alexandria and has become an active member of the student body, participating in many organizations, most notably the Academic Integrity Task Force on Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee. And whereas Ms. Aguilera is active in the community outside of our university, using her talents as a translator in service to her church and at a local driving academy. And whereas Ms. Aguilera was twice elected student body president of LSUA. And whereas Ms. Aguilera serves the Louisiana Higher Education Council student body presidents as a commissioner at large. And whereas Ms. Aguilera is planning to graduate with 2 degrees in May 2022, a Bachelor of Accounting and a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, with concentrations in International and Business Administration and minors in Spanish and Psychology, and intends to continue her studies by pursuing an advanced degree. And whereas Ms. Aguilera has been a valuable member of the LSU Board of Supervisors by remaining exceptionally engaged, sharing the students' perspective, and representing the board at several events across our state. Therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors of Louisiana State University and Agricultural and Mechanical College does hereby offer its appreciation to Ms. Monica Aguilera Perez for her service to the board and her dedication to the service of our students. Monica? I'd ask for a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second. We'll have a move by Supervisor Jones with a unanimous second. Monica, this is for you.
So, Mr. Chairman, this fella and I want to split a scholarship, sending this young lady to law school. I don't know how that works, but that's what we're interested in doing.
Oh, wow.
Thank you. So, now for my report is the next item on the agenda. And again, I want to reiterate my thanks and appreciation to the chancellors here, Dr. Lewis and Dr. Clark. Being in Shreveport is not a chore for me. I hear all the chatter about coming up to Shreveport, about Shreveport feeling left out or decisions and resources being made or sent elsewhere. I understand that. Well, my family, my mother's family, is from Avoyles Parish, and I lived there for years. I actually grew up in the Arklatex, and I went to high school around the Toledo Bend Lake area, about an hour south of here. Coming to Shreveport was a treat. There was movie theaters and shopping malls, restaurants, and it was something we looked forward to. After I graduated from law school, I went back to Avoyles to be an assistant district attorney, and then when the DA retired, I moved back to DeSoto Parish and practiced law. I went to federal court in Shreveport, state court some too, but when I practiced. And I did general practice of law, which I would normally do in Mansfield or in Manning, DeSoto and Sabine parishes. Those experiences, both as when I was younger and when I was a young lawyer, I had a full appreciation. I learned and gained a full appreciation for how people in Northwest Louisiana get an idea that they're not seen as important as other people are in our state. I understand that sentiment. It's not exactly correct. Not only is Shreveport personally important to me, but it is important to LSU. This entire region is. Being a 64 parish enterprise like LSU is, necessarily includes every parish in Northwest Louisiana. I heard the comments from our special guest today, and I know that their views were heartfelt. While the problems are real, I don't know that the proposed solutions hit the mark. The real problems I've heard are the real problems. Lack of funding, not having programs advanced as far as they would like, or we would like. But that goes back to a general disinvestment in higher education that Louisiana suffered. It goes back to maybe a lack of commitment years ago, but that's not the reality now. But to address those real concerns about lack of funding in higher education and a lack of prioritizing what we do well, LSU is the flagship university in Louisiana. We have as primary portions of our mission research, the studying of the engineering and military sciences. We have a vibrant 64-parish agricultural extension service. We have world-class research at our main campus at A&M campus in Baton Rouge, at Pennington, at our medical schools, at our ag extension services, all throughout the state. But our friends don't, when it comes to splitting up resources, don't really value those things as much as we believe they should be. We have a funding formula that rewards a number of pupils, but doesn't reward research, online, or professional schools the way they should be rewarded, in my view, valued. And we need to have discussions about the proper way to do those things. I don't think it's a coincidence that Shreveport, our medical school, and LSUS has a whole lot of great things happening online, professional schools, and in research. And I think that that could be remedied by properly funding higher education. So to that end, I'm going to convene a higher education summit. And I'm going to ask the Board of Regents, the Commissioner of Higher Education, the boards and the presidents of every system, higher education system in Louisiana, to attend at LSU. I think we're going to do it August the 1st and the 2nd of this year. I think we're going to ready the Pete Maravich Assembly Center for this event. The agenda, still in formation, will include discussions of the master plan for higher education, issues that affect all of the systems. And I would like to see it address the proper way to fund higher education, the way the money is split, and the amount of money higher education receives. I take seriously the offers to partner that I heard today from our special friends. So join us in properly funding higher education and properly prioritizing the research, online, and professional schools that will directly benefit every parish, every one of our campuses, and particularly Shreveport in Northwest Louisiana. Nothing can detract us or distract us from achieving NCI designation. To do that, we must work together. We have to be on the same page. I call on every one of us to look for ways to join with each other towards this common goal. We've had a lot of discussion today, a lot of leadership from the president, a lot of great presentations from our speakers, but we all have to act in that accord. And LSU Shreveport will be a major part of the research and the cyber portions of it. And our Health Science Center in Shreveport is going to be a major part, major focus, major partner for this NCI designation piece. Thank you for having us here. We enjoy being here. Can't wait to get back. So with that, it concludes my report. I want to thank the supervisors for joining us here on short notice. And I'm going to stay around. With that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion made by Ms. Monica Aguilera Perez. So with that, we are adjourned.
Ooh.